Hi everyone, my name is Jess Ponting. I'm the Director of the Center for Surf Research at San Diego State University, and I'm also the co-founder of STOKE Certified, which is the first sustainability certification program specifically for surf tourism resorts and also for surfing destinations. First of all, I'd like to say thanks for asking me to participate in the workshop on sustainable destination management. I really wish I could be with everybody there. I can't. I have a brand new baby girl to look after. So here's my presentation all the way from sunny California. Today I'm going to talk about STOKE Certified, and a particular direction on this I'm going to take is to look at millennial demand for sport and surf tourism in particular, and what sustainability certifications that are specifically targeting the surf niche and other sport tourism niches, how they can help to drive millennial demand for these particular types of sport tourism. So the millennial generation, that is those born approximately between 1980 and the year 2000, are rapidly becoming the most important generation in terms of tourism demand. They currently represent 80 million people in the United States and spend $200 billion a year on leisure and recreation pursuits. They will spend $10 trillion over their lifetime in these areas, and they spend 11% more than other generations on leisure. They will represent 50% of the US workforce by 2020 and 75% by 2025. Many forms of sport tourism find themselves in the midst of a generational transition that is not working out particularly well for them. Millennials in the snow sport industry are not replacing boomers who are aging out of these sports. For example, in 1974, there were about 12 million skiers in the United States, representing 53 million skier visits each year. 40 years later, there are just 13 million skiers, and their visits totaled 53.6 million visits a year. So there's been very little growth over a 40-year period in a time when you've seen the population grow significantly. 40 years ago, about 5.5% of the US population participated in snow sports. Today, only 4% of people ski or snowboard. Snowboarding is down 28% in the last 10 years. Skiing is down 10%. On top of this, Generation Y, the millennial generation, only spend half as many days on the mountain each year as the baby boomers who are aging out of the sport did in the past. Generation Y, millennials, tend to spend 5 days a year. The boomers would spend 10 days a year on average. So this means that you need 2 millennials to replace one baby boomer who is aging out of snow sports. Millennials are not replacing boomers who are aging out of the game of golf either. The US lost 20% of its golf players in the past 10 years. In 2013, 400,000 players dropped out of the sport, and 50% of those were millennials. What about surfing? Well, there are many industry reports and recreation and leisure organisation reports showing that participation rates in surfing continue to grow. However, there is evidence of declining interest on a broader scale in the sport. 2 of the original big 3 surfing companies, started in the late 1960s and early 1970s, filed for bankruptcy in the last 2 years in the form of Quicksilver and Billabong. 2 of the major surfing magazines in the United States were shut down in the same period, Trans World Surf and Surfing magazine. Now, another way to approach this, and it certainly has its flaws as a research tool, but we can look at the trends in Google searches over time. And here is a look at the Google searches for surfing from 2004 to the present time. And you can see that interest appears to be waning. Now you may see a fairly significant spike there towards the end of September in 2015. It might be interesting to speculate on what this was. Why was there a sudden surge of interest? This was in fact when Mick Fanning was attacked by a great white shark during the final of the Jeffreys Bay Open that year. So that caused a surge of interest which rapidly waned. We can overlay this with the trend in Google searches for snowboarding over time. You can see that the base level for snowboarding is lower than that of surfing, but it has significant peaks during the winter time and particularly when the Winter Olympics are in play. Skiing has a higher base level than snowboarding, lower than surfing, but its peaks are extremely high during the winter time. Let's overlay golf, a much higher base level, but again very seasonal, and you can see that those seasons are the opposite of the snow season, so most people choosing to search for golf during the summertime, fairly obviously. But the overall trend in all of these forms of sport which drive sport tourism is downward. Despite this downward trend, evidenced by the Google searches since 2004, surfing participation rates do seem to be firm. There are around 35 million surfers in the world. It's projected, in 2012 it was projected that by 2020 there would be 47 million surfers worldwide. Well, let's see how that pans out. The 35 million figure has been around for a while. In the United States, there are 5.3 million surfers if you include stand-up paddleboarders. And these are 2014 numbers produced by the Outdoor Foundation, a non-profit organisation that looks at outdoor recreation. The global surf industry, inclusive of manufacturing, wholesaling, retailing, travel, media, was estimated by O'Brien and Eddy in 2013 to be worth between 70 and 130 billion globally. And that is those are some pretty wide goalposts, but it depends on the kinds of assumptions that you make. There are 100 member countries of the International Surfing Association, and surfing will be in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. So this is a very significant player in the world. In the United States, surfing is America's fourth favorite youth outdoor activity, based on 4.4 million outdoor recreation outings for people aged between 6 and 24, produced by the Outdoor Foundation in 2015. So surfing ranks fourth after running, jogging and trail running, bicycling and skateboarding. And the reason that it ranks so highly is that the people who do surf do it a lot. It's not like they only do it once a month. They will spend a lot of time surfing, and that really elevated surfing's rank in this list. The average American surfer is 34 years old, highly educated, earns $75,000 a year, owns 4 surfboards, surfs for 2.5 hours, 108 times a year, so roughly twice a week, and spends between $40 and $100 every time they surf, injecting between $2 and $5 billion into local economies around the coasts of the United States. This surfing population is also hypermobile. 91% of them have undertaken surf travel in the past 5 years. 40% have taken more than 10 surf trips in the last 5 years, and 20% more than 21 surf trips in the last 5 years. A recent study out of Oxford University showed that high quality surfing waves can be shown to boost economic activity. This was done by analysing the amount of nighttime light, which is now being used as an indicator of economic development. Using this methodology, it was projected that 18 to 25 million US dollars are generated per surf break per year, totaling $50 billion globally in economic activity driven by high quality surf breaks. Newly accessed surf breaks tend to grow, the economic growth in that area is at around 3%, according to this study from Oxford University. The economic impacts of surfing and surf travel have been calculated at a wide variety of destinations around the world. The Gold Coast in Australia estimates that it makes $820 million a year from surf tourism alone. Trestles in California calculated this to be 45 million, Mavericks 23.8, Stradbroke Island in Australia $20 million a year, Uluwatu in Bali, just one break on the Bukit Peninsula, which is home to many surf breaks, generates 8.4 million a year, Pleasure Point, California 8.4 million, Pichilemu in Chile 8 million, and Mundaka in Spain was calculated to generate $4.5 million a year. The Vans Triple Crown of Surfing, which is a 12-day event in Hawaii, generates $20.9 million. So surfing has a very significant economic impact. Despite growing academic interest in surfing and surf tourism, the research is still quite limited, particularly in terms of specialised surf tourism lodging and surfing destinations. The surf tourism industry really only began in the late 1970s and only became significant in the 1990s. The image here is of the first ever specifically built surf tourism lodging at Garajangan in East Java in Indonesia, which was built in 1979. So let's change direction a little bit and talk about the millennials and what all of this means in the context of millennials and what their preferences are, and second homes. It's about experience and adventure. They think differently about sustainability as well. They care more about the environment, but don't call them environmentalists. They don't want to be labelled that way. But they do care. They are 76% more focused on the environment than their parents. They want progress and have been described as catalysing a clean label trend for transparency across all kinds of consumer products and service provision. Authenticity is key for the millennials. 68% of them are sceptical of sustainability claims made by the tourism industry. And they will boycott companies if they feel deceived by them on their sustainability claims. So knowing that millennials are the key market for the future of sport tourism lodging, what are the attitudes of millennial surf tourists to sustainability and how do they relate to previous generations? Can sustainability be leveraged to drive millennial demand for surf tourism lodging in surfing destinations? Now, my aim today is to answer these questions and explore its application through a case study of STOKE Certified, which I've mentioned before, is the first sustainability certification to specifically target surfing resorts and surfing destinations. So the methodology here was an online survey conducted in 2015. This was a snowball sample that utilised social media to propagate the survey. You can see the flyer that was sent around here. Participants were incentivised to participate by going into a draw to win a free Firewire surfboard of their own choice. Over 3,000 people participated from 68 countries. The majority of respondents were from the United States, Australia, France, Germany, the UK and Spain. The average respondent, 80% of them were male. They were 34 years old with more than 10 years of experience. They surf 3 times a week, own 4 surfboards, make $75,000 a year. Almost 3/4 of them are predominantly shortboard riders. To break down the numbers by generation, you can see that we had 43% of respondents were millennials, 49% were Generation X, and a smaller number were baby boomers, so age 55 and older, roughly 8%. But still large enough numbers in all 3 categories to be useful for our analysis.